Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how we analyze data to calculate the variance. Oh, we'll do the variance, not, I guess we'll do the mean too, might as well. Mean, variance, and standard deviation. So I provided a set of data. There are 10 events here, 44, 37, 26 for students 1, 2, 3, and so on, all the way to 10. We'll ignore these two columns for right now, okay? But we're just going to focus on these data. And what we need to do is we're going to calculate the variance. What first thing I do is I copy and paste this cell, right? This whole table to Excel. Now I already did it here, but I'm just show you how you do that just in case you don't know. You just grab like any little cell here and right click if you're using a PC. If you're using a Mac, you do whatever Mac things are, and then you just paste, and all of a sudden this table is in Excel. Now, sometimes you may have alternative types of tables. So I had a Word document, and I used a Word document to paste it into this Excel document, so that since they're both Microsoft, it's really easy to do this. You may, on the other hand, have other types of tables. If you are ever in a situation where you need to paste something into Excel that's not from one Microsoft product to another, if you paste it, you may get a mismatch or misalignment of cells. What you do then is you go to, where is it? Let me see. I have to move. There's this zoom bar that always gets in the way. Yeah, you go to, let me see, data, and hit text to columns, and that'll help you turn whatever data you brought in into columns. Then you can modify it as needed. Okay, so just keep that in mind as we move along. Okay, so this is what I have, but now I deleted all the stuff here, these two columns. I just want to show you how I do this, okay, from scratch. All right, so here's our data set. And there are 1, 2, 3 equations over here. The first equation is the common equation for the variance. If you're interested, I have a video on showing you why we divide by n-1. So this is an unbiased estimate of the population variance. This is a shortcut formula for the variance. It doesn't look like it's a shortcut, but it is for bookkeeping reasons. I also have a video showing how we derive this. So I got videos for everything. And then this is the standard deviation, which is a square root of variance. At this point, I'm not even going to discuss what that all means because there's other videos, and in your courses, you'll learn about that anyway. All right, so first one I have is this bad boy right here. So I'm going to calculate the mean. The mean is just the sum of all these values. There's 10 different values divided by 10. That's your average arithmetic mean. So I need a sum here, right? To sum across a set of values, you highlight one cell. This is where the sum is going to go. And I have the title sum here. So this is where I'm going to put it. If you go to the right up here, and now some newer versions of Excel may not have that, but you can always find the sum by going into the function key. We'll be using this function key in a bit. So if you hit auto sum, it'll highlight a set of values. You just make sure these are the values you want to summate, and then you just hit enter, and you get 363. Well, the mean is just the sum divided by the number of entries. So there's 10 entries. Now, if in this cell, I want to write a function as well. 363 divided by 10. I mean, I don't need to really do that. I can add 36.3, but let's show you how they do that. If you hit the equal sign, it'll initiate the function. Now you can notice up here, there's also a little equal sign. So you can write the function here, or you can write it in the cell. Sometimes I prefer up here. Depends what I'm doing. So in this case, I want the value that's in cell C13. So I highlight that cell. You notice I'm using the cells rather than the number. I could actually put the number there too, but I'm not doing that. And I use this slash symbol for divide. And now I have to put a number in, 10. I just want to make sure that it divides by the appropriate number, and I get 36.3. So that's our mean. So now you know how to create your own function. I could do all these functions in here, but I'm not going to do that. This one, I'm just showing you how I enter the cells here. Okay, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just showing you the cells. I'm not actually going to calculate all these for you, but I'll show you how we can calculate them in Excel though, okay? All right, so I need that. Now, this first equation is interesting, and I ask my students always, why do we square here? Well, let's see what happens if we don't square. But first of all, we need them to subtract the mean from each value. So I need 44 minus 36.3. That's what that means, xi. There are 10 individuals. So we're summing from 1 to 10, and I left the little I equals 1 to n from this, or I equals 1 to 10 from here. I left that out of this equation for simplicity. I suppressed it. So each xi, in this case, x is a variable. So we let this variable x equal exam scores. So each individual has an exam score. The first one is 44, the second one is 37, right? So in this numerator, you need to subtract the mean from each value. So let's do that here. So again, I use that equal sign to initiate the equation. Now, I'm not going to square it because I want to show you something. I'm not going to be using this equation to calculate the variance. I'm going to use the shortcut equation. So this says value, so values in C3 minus the mean. Now, I'm not going to highlight 36.3 because if I did that, one of the things that I'm going to do next will just blow up. So when I need the same value, so this is a constant, it's not going to change, I'm just going to write the value in there. So 36.3. I hit enter. So it's 7.7. I need to fill in the rest of these cells, right? With 37 minus 36.3, etc. Instead of typing them again, I'm going to go to that little corner there. Now notice how my cursor changes from this thick cross to a thinner cross. I'm going to pull it down here and do it for all 10 values, right? So now I've completed this series. Now, I'm going to do it again, but I'll show you what would happen if instead of putting 36.3 in there, I put this cell in, right? That sounds logical based on what I showed you. First one's going to be okay. Oh, let me do that again. Minus, for some reason this moved, minus 36.3. Okay. All right, and hit enter. So we get the same value, but look what happens now. Everything changed, right? Do it again. Yeah, everything changed. The reason it changed was because, and you see it's the same. The values are the same, 37, 37, 26.26. Let's pull up one of these. Here it says C6 minus C17, but the value 36.3 is in C14. So if I don't put a constant in there, it'll shift everything down one. So when you're calculating something where you don't want the value to change, in other words, you're using a constant, it's better to just write the constant in. Okay, so 36.3, hit enter, and let's drag down again. And so this will subtract every 36.3 from everything. And we can double check that if we want. So let's look at this guy right here. So this is 26, which is in C5, right? Minus 36.3. All right. So that's that. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you what happens to the sum here and why we square it. So I summated these values, and I want to summate all these values. So I can just drag this over, and it'll move the sum function to over here. So this is equal to 2.8, and then so we're moving the decimal point to the left like 14 times. So what this is telling us is that this is 0. This is essentially 0, right? The reason we square this sum is that we don't want a value of 0 because we know there's variability. This is telling us that the variance would be 0 because 0 divided by anything is 0. So by squaring it, we actually eliminate that problem. Now, of course, we're dealing with squared units, right? So we've got to be very specific at what we're dealing with. but that's why we square. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. So this is just for your learning pleasure. If anybody asks you, why do you square the top in this equation? All right, let's go back. So now we have x's, and it says here we need the sum of the x's. Well, we have the sum of the x's. It's 363, and we need to square that, right? So at some point, we just need to square that. We also need the x squares, right? So we're going to sum the x squares. This is you sum the x's and then square. So this is 363 squared. Here we have to sum all the x squares. Well, we don't have x squared. So let's do that. So now we're going to go to the function key, function. So again, I highlighted the cell in which I want this to occur. Now, Excel will start saving everything you do, and it'll say these are your most used functions, right? But you may not have that. So let's go ahead and look at where we'd find squaring something. In other words, taking the power. That would be under math and trig. So it's a mathematical operation. So we look for power. There it is. So power is synonymous with squaring. Well, squaring is one type of power. It's raising something to a certain power, right? So hit OK. And here it says, I want the number and I want the power. All right, so you also notice that there's an R in here. So this has actually initiated the equation, and there it is again. So what do I want to square? Well, I want to square this value here. So it appears within these parentheses. And what's the power? It's going to be 2. Squaring means you're raising something to the second power, right? So you see it right, C3, 2, and it actually gives you the answer right here. And then you just hit OK. All right, so it's 1936. Great year, right? So let's pull this down, because we need to square all of the values in column C, or it says column 2 exam scores. There you go. And we got all the squares. And then in this equation, we need to summate the x squares, right? So we already have been summing here across these 10 values. So let's put that in there. We get 13,645. So, you know, I'm not going to go through and write this equation. You can write this equation. You can just fill it in wherever you want, okay? Now, so we have a mean. We calculated these sums. Last thing we need is the variance. Okay, so like in my course, you all have to show me everything by plugging all the right numbers in here. Like you'd plug 13,645 here. In the numerator, you'd put 363 squared and then divided by n. N is the universal symbol for the number of individuals. So there's 10 individuals. Then you divide this whole thing by 9. 10 minus 1 is 9, right? So that's what you do, and then you can solve. You can always check your work too by letting SPSS calculate the variance for you. So let's go up to the function key again. And now this is a statistical issue. It's not a math and trig issue. So you look under statistical. And by the way, the average, that's how you could find the mean, right? Depending what kind of average you're looking for. There's not just one, like there's geometric mean, etc. Okay, let's look for variance, then standard deviation, all the good stuff you need. Variance, we want the variance from the sample because we're dealing with a sample. We're not dealing with the entire population. Hit OK. And well, we're going to put it in. Where are we going to put this? Oh, which number? Excuse me. Which number? Oh, this is okay. They want it. It wants you to tell me how we're going to calculate the variance. Pardon me, but we need the variance for these values in cell C3 all the way to C10. So I highlight and drag down across all the values. So from C3 to C12, right? So it says C3. There's a colon C12. That's it. I hit OK. I get my variance. This is 52.001. Okay. I could do the same for the standard deviation. A standard deviation is just a square root of this value. So you can do the same. You can either just go to the function and find standard deviation. Standard deviation. Sample. We're interested in the sample standard deviation. So it says sample. Hit OK, and it'll do the same. And you only pick the values that you need, not all the values, because some of these are not individual values. And you hit OK. And that gives you the standard deviation. Okay. Or if you want, you could also do it this way. You could take use a mathematical operation, go to math and trig, and we just need the square root. So I'm giving you everything here. You should like be paying me for this. You know what you should do? You should like subscribe to my channel. That'll help me out, okay? Square root. Subscriptions are free. You don't have to pay anything. We want the square root of the variance. We highlight that value and hit OK, and it's the same thing, okay? So that, my friends, is how you use Excel to finish work. Now, it depends if you're not in my course, your professors may not allow you to use Excel. I allow my students to use Excel because I'm practical and I want people to do well in life, not just in my course. Thank you very much. And voila, that's it.